Hello. Today we're going to be going over the homework for week 8 for the Python 1. And in this homework, we're going to be doing a treasure hunting game. So in this game, there will be obstacles that are generated, and there will be treasures that you, as the player, as the turtle, will have to collect. So the player is able to move using the arrow keys. And when you collect a treasure, the treasure disappears and a new treasure spawns. And your score is kept track of down here in the text. And once a player collects all 5 treasures, the player wins. And if a player runs into an obstacle, it's a game over. So to explain this code, first we're going to import our 2 modules, our turtle module and our random module, which we'll be using, and then printing some like game instructions about how the game works. So now we're doing the setup. So first we're going to be doing the screen setup. So we want to use turtle.screen, and we also want to set up the dimensions just so we have an idea of how big our screen is going to be as we're moving. And we initiate our turtle. So it's going to be the turtle shape. It's going to be green. And we're making sure that we're not drawing anything with the pen up. And then we're just setting our speed to 3 just to have a nice basic speed. Here we're initiating the treasure. And so we have a new turtle object, which is circle, gold color. And we're also going to want to make sure we're not drawing anything as we move because we're going to be setting the speed to 0 because the treasure should just appear from one place to another. And then we're going to give it a random position because the treasure generates somewhere different every time. And these obstacles, we're going to generate 2 of them. So it's the same process of initializing a turtle, setting the shape and the color and doing pen up. And then we're actually going to specify exactly where we want these obstacles to be. So negative 100, 100. And then for the second obstacle, we want it to be at 100, negative 100. For some more setup, we want to do our score. So it's printing out our initial score that we have set to 0. And then these are our functions that we're going to use to move as the player. So one function for each direction. Within each function, we're just defining, we're getting what our current position is. So our current, this player dot y core is giving the current y coordinate of the player. And it's saying that if the y is less than 280, then we can go ahead and add 20, and we can set the player y to what it was currently plus 20. And we do the if statement just to make sure that the turtle like hits the boundary and doesn't go too far off screen. And it's essentially the same for all the different directions. So we're getting the current coordinate and we're checking to make sure that if we do move, it won't be off screen. And so if that condition is fine, if it'll be within the screen that we want, we just go ahead and set the coordinate to uh, what it was minus 20 or plus 20 or whichever direction we're moving in. So yeah, for move up and move down, we're changing y's, um, or adding. For moving up, we're subtracting, we're moving down, and then for x, uh, x is left and right. So if we're moving left, we're subtracting 20, and if we're moving right, we're adding 20. And then this is setting up how the uh, screen is actually listening to the player movements and how we're going to actually trigger these functions. So we want to be able to listen to the keyboard. So on key, uh, the up arrow. So when the up arrow is triggered, we want to call move up. So we want to run this move up function. Same thing for all of these others. When on key down, we want to trigger the move down function. Or on key left, we want to trigger the move left function. And then we want the move right function to be triggered when we press key right. So this is next section is actually how the game is going to be implemented, like the actual gameplay. So we create a loop called game loop, and this is running all of the logic that occurs while the game is being played. So we want to be able to access the score variable that we defined up here. So we call global score, and global keyword just to make sure that that score is associated with the variable score that's already been defined outside of the function. So first thing that we want to check for is if it's collided with a treasure. So we have an if statement saying that if the player's distance, uh, the distance between the player and the treasure is less than 20, so it's like within 20 units, then your score will increase. It'll print your new score, and then the treasure will move to a different random position within um, where x is between negative 250 and 250, and y is between negative 250 and 250. Another thing we're checking for is if we collide with an obstacle, it's the same thing. We want to check if the distance between the player and the obstacle is less than 20. We use an or statement because we're checking for if the player hits either one of the obstacles. So if the distance is less than 20 for obstacle one, or if the distance between the player and obstacle two is less than 20, then you print the game over message and you return. So effectively, you exit this function. And then for the win condition, so we're checking to see if our score is greater than or equal to 5, then we print you win, and then again, we exit. So as we're running this like gameplay loop, if none of these uh, conditions are met, and that means that the game should keep going. So then we run this code, which is screen.onTimer game loop 500. So what this is doing is it's creating a timer saying, I'm going to run the function game loop in 500 computer seconds uh, in in time. So um, that's how we keep the gameplay going, is that this function, once game loop is called, it's going to keep calling itself until either of these two conditions are met. Once either one of these conditions are met, it's going to return, and so the function will stop being called, and so the game will be over. And so that's why we call it initially. So this is going to start calling it, and so once this is called, it'll start looping through the screen time loop. Just make sure that the program is continually listening for like user input, like the on key. So it just makes sure that it keeps listening to get the user interaction.